So some of what I was saying was, as a African, there's several things that you go through in America that the African side don't understand. They don't grasp it. They don't understand it. And then on the American side, you don't have people that understand either what you have to deal with on the African side. And so you're left on this island by yourself. You're left on this island by yourself, and it can be isolating. It could be depressing. You don't feel like anybody understands what you're going through. Nobody can relate with you. You don't feel like anybody you could talk to. And that leads to a lot of things. That leads to depression. It can lead to a lot of coping in different ways. For me, I made a conscious decision to cope by becoming addicted to my work, or mastering the art of my business and what I wanted to do, and focusing on me, focusing on bettering myself through that process. And that's what I became addicted to. That was my coping mechanism, was, seeking purpose, seeking what it is that everything I'm doing meant to me. Like, what does dreams and ambition mean to me? What's my vision? What's my goal? And becoming so addicted and focused, and using that as my coping mechanism to accomplish that, or get closer to that goal as much as possible during that period of time. That's how I chose to cope. But that was also because I saw negative coping mechanisms that led to jail or murder or suicide, or and for some time I've used some negative coping mechanism, got into drinking a lot, and those there's a cycle of things you go through, and it's, like I said, it's isolating. It can be very depressing. It could be very lonely, extremely lonely, and we go through those things. Black men specifically, because I am one, I know that we isolate ourselves in ways that are just unhealthy. You leave relationships, you leave friendships, you just stay on your own. And I did that for a long time, because I just didn't feel like anybody understood what I was going through. In fighting for my daughter, and not having anyone to talk to. And I'm talking about it now because I've gone through it. I know what it feels like. I have empathy for all black men living in America. I have empathy for black fathers. I have empathy for black people living in America, because oftentimes the rest of the world, or other people, other races, don't really understand from a practical standpoint what racism may feel like, what the discrimination may feel like, what going to court and getting biased sentencing feels like, what it feels like to fight to see your kids as a father, what it's like to be beat down on mentally, emotionally, physically, and those things are often hard to explain, because other people may not go through it in the same way. When you're getting unfair treatment by judges, or by a system that's just not meant to work for you, you know, or getting stuck with tons of different stereotypes as a father, like someone who is irresponsible, or who doesn't take care of their kids, or who isn't there for their kids when you're fighting a system that, you know, is set up against you, and it's hard to win. You fight tons of battles, you know, but understand it's a war. You got to fight several battles. You're not going to win every single one. And like I was saying earlier, like I feel for black fathers, because having gone through what I've gone through, I understand that I don't believe that several black men or fathers in general don't want to be a part of their kids' lives. It's once you start going through the system of having to fight just to be in your kids' lives, you realize that there's a financial burden, there's a, you know, physical burden, there's an emotional burden, and those things can pile up for any human being, man, woman, anything. It can pile up to a place where some people can cope with it, some people can't. Everyone finds their way of coping with it. Everyone has their level of elasticity where they can fight, how far they can go. Some people quit. Some people turn to drugs. Some people turn to alcohol. You know, some people turn to suicide. Some people turn to homicide. Some people, you just lose your sanity. Those are real things. Those are real issues. And you know, I've gone through some of those things, and I speak on them because I'm here today talking as someone who still fights, but I feel like a survivor. And I know that several men go through this, and we don't talk about it often because it's embarrassing, it's shameful, you know, it's isolating. And it feels like a lot of people don't understand because we don't talk about it often. We don't see other people that we can relate to, that can understand, and we could say, listen, this is how things really work. This is how this thing is really set up, you know? And we need to open up more. So I'm taking that first step. It is partially therapeutic, and you know, I'm quite frankly, I'm tired of being isolated. I'm tired of being put in a box. I'm not an animal to be put in a cage. You know, this is how I explain to a lot of people what it's like to be black in America. From my perspective, from the perspective of a black man who was born and raised on the African continent and then immigrated to the United States, this is my explanation. So, as a black African, we're wild animals. We're lions born in this jungle to roam free. We're the kings of this jungle. We're the kings of this wilderness. We're the kings of this land. We're the lions. Everyone fears us. We control this domain. And we're free to roam our territory as we please. We're free to take advantage of the opportunities. We're free to hunt for what we want. Those are your visions, your goals. You're free to dream as big as you want. There are no boundaries. There are no fences for you to be limited to. And you're born into that. Now with that, there might not be as much, you know, a lion's a lion. A lion's wild. We're not tamed. We are wild lions. And then you take this lion, and the lion gets captured, or roams into a trap, or takes a trip to a different territory where the lion is now contained in a zoo. Now, if you take any animal that's used to being a wild animal and you put it in a cage, it will fight, it will struggle, boom, 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 it will struggle, it will fight. And that's how we are as black immigrants to the United States. You know, we suddenly realize we're in this cage, and you may fight and struggle for certain things that you feel you have a right to. You have a right not to be caged. You have a right to roam free, and you still think you're in your domain. Who is to capture you and put you in this cage? And then after a while, when you capture wild animals and they realize they're in their cage, they start realizing the boundaries of their cage, and the reality starts to set in, and then they start to calm down. They start to settle down. And then they start to realize that the more they're calm, you know, someone brings water, someone brings food, you know. America is like a zoo for black men. You're brought in. If you fight and you struggle, you're going to have a hard time. But once you settle down and you start realizing the boundaries of the cages you're in, you start to realize you're in this zoo. And the better you behave, the bigger your boundaries become. So, if you're fighting, you're struggling, you might find yourself in a jail cell. Small, confined space. The better you act, you might get let out on parole or probation, and you're not limited to this jail cell. You're allowed to roam free, but there are still boundaries. There's still a boundary. You know, if you're a lion in the zoo, you know, you get a bigger cage. Maybe you have a waterfall in your den, or there's a little rock space where it has a little den for you. You can go lie under the shade. You know, you have more space, and that's how I describe being black in America, especially as an African immigrant. You know, I came in as this wild lion, untamed, big visions, big dreams. You know, having a whole paradise to roam free on, and then you get captured and put in a zoo. And oftentimes as African immigrants, we don't start off fighting, because you come to a zoo but you don't realize you're in it, because you still have some space to roam free. And because the land is so free, you're not exploring the entire boundaries. And then it's until something happens, maybe you let out a big roar, or you snap on something, or you try to, you know, use your natural instincts to hunt for something, and all of a sudden you hit a glass window. Boom. The law. Or something that puts you in check to let you know. The zookeeper puts something for you that puts you in check. Maybe it's an electric fence or whatever analogy you want to use, and then you realize, oh crap, I'm captured. There are limitations to what I could do here. And unless you stay obedient and stay in this cage and become a good zoo animal, you know, become an exhibition for the people coming to see the animals in the zoo as the attraction. That's what you are as a black man. Just be an athlete, be an entertainer. Stay in the zoo, and maybe we'll pay you more. That's your cage. We'll give you a bigger cage. We'll put you in a nicer den. We'll pay you more. You know, if you do these things, just be a good attraction. You know, be a lion in the cage. Let the kids and people come and watch you. You know, you can be wild in the cage. Maybe they'll even throw, you know, a live animal for you to attack, just to get the, you know, the attendees at the zoo to get excited and come see you again. You become the favorite lion. If you're a monkey, they might give you, a banana to do a backflip. That's how I think about being in America as a black man. You have to be a good zoo animal in order to fully enjoy the benefits of being fed every day and being given a nice cage and a den to sit in. And what happens is, if you're a zoo animal and you were born in the zoo, you don't know anything else. You don't know what it's like to live in the wild. That's how I describe a lot of black Americans. You don't know what it's like to roam free, to have a free domain, to be king of a jungle, to have big visions and dreams and goals that, far exceed the boundaries of what you've been born into. And some people get comfortable in that. Some people don't want to go out and hunt. Until you know the joy of being able to hunt down your own food, of having free reign, being able to have the choice of hunting down a zebra or a giraffe or a buffalo, having options. In the zoo, you're fed what you're fed. They feed you what they want to feed you. So some people get comfortable just being fed dead meat. They don't even know how to hunt anything live. They get comfortable in that because you don't have to exert your energy. You don't have to go some days hungry when there are no animals to hunt, or go for the hunt and not get the kill. So yeah, it's easier in the zoo because you're fed everything. However, it comes at a price. And the price is, well, you have limitations. This is how big your den is going to be. They feed you when they want to feed you, what they want to feed you. And for the sake of this analogy, like I said, it's become an athlete or entertainer. You're the attraction. Do these things and we pay you. You can buy a bigger house. You can get out of the hood. You can afford nice cars. You can afford nice things. But you're still in the zoo. It doesn't matter how much you get paid. And no amount of money will ever equate. There's no amount of food that can be given to you in the zoo and fed to you on a platter that will equate to the joy of the hunt, the joy of being free. The joy of freedom is something you can't put a price tag on. And having been born into freedom and understanding what it truly feels like and what it truly means, and having been once captured at a zoo, I understand what it's like to be a zoo animal, and I understand what it's like to be the king of the jungle. And the adrenaline of a hunt, the pride, the joy of being king of your own domain is very different. You can't put a price tag on it. So no matter how much you get paid as an athlete or as an entertainer in America, or no matter how much food you're given in the zoo as a lion, at the end of the day, it will never equate to true freedom, to truly hunting. If anything, it suppresses your natural instinct to be a lion, your natural instinct to hunt. You lose those skills. So I say all that because these are things I've felt for a long time. They're things that I find hard to express oftentimes, but I use analogies a lot because that's just how I felt. That's just really what it's like, you know, as a Nigerian immigrant to the United States. I've learned a lot of things through trial and error, through my mistakes. I've gotten to experience and learn empathy, and learn that no matter what you do in America as a black man, you are never free. That is never your country. You are always a slave. And as sad as that is very true. And I don't know, I'll probably get into some trouble for some of this. Who knows? But the truth is the truth. And I'm just speaking from my experience. I'm speaking from my experience as an African immigrant, speaking from my experience as a black man in America, as a father in America, as a person with big goals and visions and dreams, as an entrepreneur, as someone who thinks big, to understand that you are in America, you're permitted to become successful. Now, the dynamics for men and women are fairly different. See, because black men have been broken down physically and mentally for so long, for hundreds of years in America, they've been stained with several stereotypes. They've been stained with mental blocks, with several things to break them down. With black women, I believe black women are the only saving grace for black people in America, period. And I say that for multiple reasons. One, it's hard to break a black woman down. They're strong mentally, they're strong physically, they're strong spiritually, they're strong intellectually. And it's hard to fight up against all of that, So, because it's harder to break a black woman down, black men have been broken down easily for hundreds of years, like I said. And so it's easier to say black men are this, black men are that. They're not good fathers, they're gang members, they're, whatever else you want to put on them, So that's why you see all these black figures, no matter how much money they make or whatever, black men with big dreams and big goals and big visions in America are either killed or have their reputation stained or destroyed. And you can say that about any black man in America, with few exceptions. And those exceptions happen to come when that man is married to a strong black woman. Those are the exceptions. And even then they still try, but it is because of black women that those men are still able to stand tall. Those men are still able to recoup. Those men are still able to, get back up. It's because of the support of black women. And so, I have spent a lot of time to research and study this. When I started DNA Creative Labs, you can see in the type of events we do, through the data I've gathered, in targeting black women, through running and owning a black hair salon. I've used all those things to research and study some of my theories. And I've found them so far to be fairly accurate, that, black women are America's only saving grace. Black women spend the most money. They're financially strong. They're mentally strong. They're emotionally strong. They're spiritually strong. And, they are a force to be reckoned with. And so I honor them, I respect them, and as a black man, like I said, I already gave you my analogies of how I think we are constrained, and you don't have to be only an athlete or an entertainer. This world is big. There are opportunities across the globe, especially on your own continent. And that's why I go about things the way I am. Like, being a soccer player is an option for me. I can be a professional soccer player. I can be an entertainer. I play drums. I play keyboard. I've been a professional soccer player. But there are opportunities in other ways. I know that I cannot be limited to just being one of those two things, or having to only use those two doors as my options to success. I was not born in a zoo. I was born in my jungle, and I'm the king of this domain, period. And that is a mentality shift. The mentality of a wild lion is very different from a lion in a cage. It's a different mentality. You hunt different. You appreciate different things. You think different. You strategize different. And I only hope and pray that through my bicultural exposure, that I am through this able to help both my African family and my Black American family to see that there are two sides to this coin. And for those that are stuck in the middle, like myself, people in the African diaspora who are immigrants, you're a student who left to go and do university in another country, and maybe you're going through some of these things, or you haven't yet, who knows, but you will go through these things where you start to realize, like, man, things are different here for us. Things are different here for me. I don't have the same liberties that I do in my home. And maybe these analogies of the lion in the cage will help you understand a little bit more what it is that you're going through. And for us on that island of isolation, where we don't feel like our African families understand, and we don't feel like we have a Black American family that can grasp the other side of it, that island, there are more people on this island than you realize. And you can feel free to reach out to me, or start having those discussions, and you'll realize that there's a lot of us out there. There's a lot of us out there who feel isolated because our parents on one side or our family on one side don't understand, and neither do they understand on the other side. And like I said, you have the wild lion and you have the zoo lion, and you happen to be both. You happen to have experienced both. You happen to be a wild lion who has been captured in a cage, or maybe willfully landed in the zoo, and that's the only way I can put it. But I wanted to express all of that because it's been in me for such a long time, and I hope it helps somebody out there to go through what they're going through and know that you can get through it. If you're a Black father going through custody issues and fighting through all of that, and it's hard, just know that you just got to keep fighting, and you got to cope in the right ways, build the right disciplines. If you're a immigrant to that country, a Black immigrant to another country, and you start realizing that you're not free in the same ways. You can't get the same American dream, things are different for you, then maybe the cage analogies will help you. And I just really hope it helps somebody, because I've gone through it. I know how dark those places were. I've lost a few friends to it, and I don't want to lose any more. That's true. And so hopefully we can start having healthy conversations and supporting each other by sharing some of our stories. And that's some of mine. That's some of my thought process, and that's that. So